Once. Okay, firstly I just want to say I'll be looking at notes on my phone. I am not WhatsApping on the sly. So, just letting you know. So, a lot of us, especially children, people my age, when we grew up, we loved comics. And I think that obsession with comics has really continued. But it was always also seen as one of those forms that your parent would be like, don't read that, your language is going to get spoiled. And I wonder if it was always because of, it always had so many cuss words if you were reading, say, a Tintin or something like that. Or just because it wasn't the long form of prose that we all tend to gravitate towards. And so it meant that we came up with very devious ways of reading comics. I mean, you'd pretend to be reading your textbook and you'd insert your comic book inside that. You would say, oh, but I mean, I have said this thing, our teacher told us to read it, absolutely did not tell us to read it. And in fact, I think libraries didn't stock them at that point of time, the school libraries, circulating libraries, yes. Tell me one thing, we were talking about this back home. What has been the history of comic culture? It's relatively new, right? And do you see that it also has evolved like it has across the world?
So yeah, thank you for the question. It is really, it's true. It's such a strange stereotype about the comics that people think that it's some kind of inferior art form. But also I have many clients approach me and say, oh, can you do this in a comic? We want to attract young people, as if young people would automatically be attracted to anything with pictures. Like, everyone has internet, they have phones, right? It's not like they will see this and they will lose their minds. So it's a very strange situation that comics are in. On one hand, they are regarded as a sort of a panacea to reading, to interest the young people. On the other hand, they're seen as something kind of shameful. And for me, it's so strange because it's a form of art, a visual narrative. And you can think of comics as of a movie, as of a cinema. Like, it's also images and words usually, right? But we don't think that all cinema is bad, right? We think, of course, there's some bad cinema, there's some good cinema. But comics somehow just remain in this weird space that it's regarded as inferior. And when I started doing comics, before, I don't know, 30 years ago, after the Soviet occupation, it wasn't like a thing. People didn't read comics much. And later, slowly, it arrived when we did our first comic book with a colleague of mine. We wanted to search for an editor, and we approached many editors, and everyone said, nobody buys comics. And then we're like, okay, so maybe one editor said, we tried comics, but nobody bought it, so, whatever. So, but we did manage to find an editor, and somehow we managed to get, it was a biography of two historical personalities, and it won some awards, and then it became some kind of more respected, and now more and more comics are being published in Lithuania, most of them for kids, but some of them for adults as well. Adults, I mean like adult themes, not necessarily like, erotica or something. Actually, my second comic book I did about semiotics, which I studied. And we thought with the publisher that, it's a comic book, so everyone will think it's for kids. And in the bookshops, they will put it in the kids section. So we put a little sign, like N18, like forbidden for people.
Did that have the counter effect?
No, actually, I think it was put in the adult section, but I still meet some kids who read it, people who grew up reading it, and they asked me, yeah, I read your comic as a kid, just wanted to ask, why was it forbidden for kids? So it's not forbidden, but maybe actually, yeah, maybe that intrigues it. So yeah, nowadays we have a way richer comic culture, but still not as rich as I would like. It's still regarded as an educational medium, not as a creation in itself. So you can, sell an idea for a publisher for a comic about an important historical personality or something like that, but you can't sell a comic about life and death, And did you have any experience with that?
I think it was very much, it's still very similar, I think, in terms of what a comic should be. There are very specific ideas of it, and otherwise if it's not there are creators who say we're not comic authors, we are graphic novelists. So there's also this distinction that's come into play when it comes to the format, which I find very fascinating. And I think going back to what you said, putting a clause on the book saying only for 18 plus, I think it's the best way to get a teenager to read. Actually. Because they'll just be like, no, then I'm reading this, it's forbidden, firstly.
And it's just science.
Absolutely. And then parents will see diagrams and say, hey, let's go for it. But what was your childhood reading like, and how has it informed you as an author, as an artist, as a translator? You wear lots of hats, like you'd be like the Dr. Seuss, many, many hats in that sense. So tell me a little bit about your childhood reading.
Well, as a child I read a lot, and I still read a lot. It's my basic favorite pastime. And I think it's like, it's a thing that keeps me sane. People sometimes say like, oh, I wish I had time to read books, but I don't have time, I'm too tired and stressed. But then maybe that's why you're tired and stressed, you don't take time to immerse yourself in a book and see the world through someone else's eyes. Like, I personally think books are great therapy and had many. So yeah, so I read a lot for kids and not for kids, and I still do. I didn't read many comics. And I didn't study arts. So I'm self-taught. So I started drawing during university lectures that were kind of boring. So I started doodling. The exchange microphones. For me as well. Thank you. So I forgot what I was saying.
Doodling.
I was mesmerized by the...
You were doodling in class, which many of us have done. How many of you doodled in class?
Yay! So I started showing my doodles to my classmates, and they were laughing. And then I started putting them online, and then someone asked me to draw for free for classic, for exposure, for like a magazine. So I started doing that, and at some point, I was doing comics for a while, but I started getting like some respect after I published a proper book with an ISBN. Then you can get some respect, but before that, very much not so. So then it sort of happened accidentally, comics for me, and I still read some comics, but I mostly read just, normal books.
Actually, when I was looking at your body of work, one of the things that you talked about, how reading is really about stepping into somebody else's shoes. But you also specialize in some ways. I don't know what's happening. There are like, all right. I now forgot what I was saying.
Stepping into someone else's shoes.
Yeah, so a lot of your work, you've looked at biographies in the form of comics. And how is it, as an author and an illustrator, stepping into somebody else's shoes, and especially at a different period of time, and telling their stories? What does it entail? Because I know that you're also a researcher, and a lot of your time is spent in just researching and stepping back into that time. What does that process look like?
Well, first of all, I read a lot. If I work on a historical character, I ask, like, for example, if it's a museum that commissions it, I read the biographies and look at their art, so I read a lot of, and this about first Lithuanian travelers in India, so I also read their biographies and stuff. So first thing is reading, so I read a lot, but I was just talking with Rasa yesterday. Now I don't remember that much because I read very, very selectively. I read and I think, okay, this is visual, this can be a scene, this can be a scene, and then, you know, I just pick out those moments and think where I can do a dialogue, where I can do like a nice background, which is important, which will I put on a spread, which will I put here. So, and then I do the planning and sketches. So the character sketches, which is also important because they need to be recognizable, but also, you know, fun to look at.
Yeah, like I was looking at this book that we were talking about today morning. Do you want to take us through the process of this, because you did work with a lot of colors, very specifically, as well as the characters. Yeah. Yes. I could hold it if you like.
So no, it's okay. I can, you know, sort of see. So I wanted also to say that it's you know, a look through someone else's eyes and a look to the past, for example, but it's inevitably my look. So anyway, it's not historical truth, but also a book is not historical truth. So it's my interpretation of the characters. So this one is about an artist, and his work was like not very, you know, visually striking. It's sort of dark and whatever, but it was important in the context of the European modernism. So I thought I would tell his biography and also add bits about European modernist like development. For example, here we have expressionism and new objectivity, and I try to explain how to look at the works of art, what to search in there and stuff. And I wanted to use parts of his, like all the colors are like collage made from the same pictures. So the same picture that you see in the background or somewhere else, that's where the character's hair or coats come from. So yeah, but to finish about historical comics, I think I draw a lot of interwar comics, like from the 20s or something, and a lot of some histories are about women, and it's nice. It's lovely, lovely dresses, lovely hairdos, beautiful. But when it's men, it's like, oh my God, it's just suits. It's suits and suits and suits. And all the suits are so similar, and like, oh, okay, maybe this lapel could be like more pointy, and this lapel could be a bit more like this, but I drew so many suits, I'm so sick of suits.
This is why we need to tell more stories about women in history,
exactly,
just so that you don't have to draw that many suits.
Yeah.
Talking of the lack of suits, you worked on this really interesting book called The First Lithuanian Travelers in India, which came out sometime in 2022.
Yes.
And you first came to India as a tourist. Then you worked on this book which looks at 6 people who came to India, and very interesting, through train, sailboat, motorbike, and how they interacted with the country and people. And then you came to launch the book, and now you've come back to talk about the book. What's been the experience like every time? One as a tourist and the second as a comic book author.
Well, it's very different. All the stages are very different. Like as a tourist or in general, like India is just so rich. It's like so rich in everything. In nature, in people, in culture, in colors, and you know, when you see it as a tourist, it's one thing. Then, when you're back home in winter and you're drawing this, it's yet another thing. But on this book, I mostly thought about people and how would they react, how would they talk, and how would they interact with their environment. And we also have a Lithuanian version. So like one version was for Lithuanian readers, so I also was thinking about Lithuanian readers, obviously, because that's my main public. And I thought what would be interesting for them, and also the project organizers, the editors, were talking with me and, saying what is important, what I missed, and stuff. And now coming back to it, it's been a while, so it's so strange revisiting your older work all the time.
That's the worst somehow. I cannot. I have one chapter I read from when I'm talking to children, and that's about it. I never go back otherwise. So I fully understand.
Yeah, but sometimes it's very frightening, but sometimes it's nice. Like I came back to this book and I thought, oh, it's actually nice. I like those characters. I think they're very nice. I think the character. Sometimes I'm ashamed. Like I feel like, oh, I didn't do good enough job. Like I should have done this differently, that differently. I mean, I could have done something differently, but I like the characters here.
Who did you enjoy drawing the most in this book?
I think it was Boschka. He was a traveler, and he studied in universities, and he was a writer also. So I did like sort of his diary, but I drew an excerpt of his diary, and it was just such a pleasure because his writing is so lively and so visual, and I could just draw his whole diaries in comic form. It's very useful for a comics artist or for an illustrator to use his work, because the text is just there. It's ready for comic.
Talking about text, I mean, as an editor, I work very closely with text, and as a picture book editor, I work closely with text and images. For you, what comes first when you're creating comics? Is it the text? Is it the image? What's your process like?
I usually write my own text. That's what I prefer, and I cannot answer anything else just together. I cannot think about, when I think about a comic, of course it comes together with already the outline of a page. And sometimes if I work like with an editor or with a client, they want to see like, oh, I want to see your process. Can you send me the text? And I'm like, I can't send the text. I have to do the sketch at least, because I need to know where everything is in the space, and maybe I correct some dialogues if it doesn't fit exactly. So I just do sketches and send them the sketches, which is basically extra work for me, but but it's I can't unmarry the two.
It's very much it is very much a marriage in that sense. Very true. And this year we at Pratham Books started working on a few picture book comic hybrids, and it was really interesting because we went to a few comic book makers as well as to writers who we wanted to work with, and the form of comics is so different. So we got these pages and pages of prose which we then had to rework to fit the comic form. You're both an author and illustrator. What's it like for you when you're working with publications where you're working with other authors who are writing the text for comics?
Well, that's one of the problems we have in Lithuania, because we don't have many people who would be like writers for specifically comic books, because it's a different way of writing than just writing a text. And if you work with a writer, they have their own ideas, obviously, and it's fine, but they have no sense of space, of space on the page, and of a page, and how to put, and they say, and also they have no idea how much space it takes, because it takes a lot of space. I always say, like, just if you need one page, tell me one idea. One page I can, convey one idea, or you can't change the location too much because it confuses the reader, or like you can't change the dialogue. I mean, you can, but it's tough because it would disturb the eye flow. And it's so many things that you have to keep in mind, and it's really hard to work with someone who doesn't know those things. It is obviously possible and can sometimes be very nice. I did some writing of some text for other people's comics, and when I wrote the text, I was already I knew where each character was standing, and like what was in the background, and when someone was coming. So that's some sensibility that doesn't come just from nothing. And did you have any experience with illustrators of your books, for example? Was it hard, or?
I have a lot of my writers in this audience.
Oh, so.
When I started out as an editor, and I think it's been a learning curve for us also, because we would we would get these massive illustrator notes from the writer. We'd also work on them, and then we'd share it with the illustrator. Now, 8 years on, I know that's a terrible idea. Don't, a comic book, a picture book, there are partnerships between the writer, the illustrator, and many times the editor and the art director as well. And so everyone needs to get their own space to think, to reimagine the words or take them to another level. And I found that giving that sort of freedom to the artist, and also often the illustrator will create something and will have the writer saying, okay, let me rethink how I've written this little text to maybe fit this illustration better. And I do think that that's pretty magical when it all starts coming together.
That is magical. I've never heard anything like it.
It's very rare, that's why it's magical. I was reading about some of your work online, and you've written very honestly also about rejection. And rejection is very much a part of the publishing process, and especially with something like comics, which entails so much of work, and then for it not to go forward. We all struggle with it, and it's so much part of the learning process, so much a part of just making in that sense. How do you deal with rejection?
Well, at the beginning, I didn't deal with it very well. I was really sad, and when you start and you doubt your art, it's like, oh, maybe I'm not a real artist. It's like, now I really don't care if I'm a real artist or not, I can survive from what I do, so I must be real. I pay taxes as an artist, so, come on. But with rejection, I think I talked with a friend back then, and he was a researcher, and he was writing papers, and I asked him how he dealt with rejection, and he said, you just get used to it. You just get used to it and don't pay it any attention. And it's true. Actually, now it's not pleasant to get rejected, but it's just a thing that happens. Now I see like my creative work as a sort of throwing dirt around and seeing where it sticks. When you have raw ideas, it's a bit like dirt, right? And then you're like, oh, okay, so no, probably not. And then you throw somewhere else, and then, oh, okay. So, it's just, I think just practice to deal with rejection and nothing else.
Practice, and I guess some sort of resilience that then gets built in, and learning and all of that from the feedback process for sure.
Yeah, I guess like some positive experience is needed, because if it's only rejection ever, then you have to be really strong to persevere. I was like just lucky to get some projects in, and then now I have more projects and so on, but it's, yeah, I don't know.
I do have lots more questions, but I thought first we'll ask the audience if they have questions, and then I'll come back with a couple of mine. Yes? Alright, we'll have somebody down with the mic.
Thought on the different styles of comic art style, and how did you find your own art style? How do you stick to it? This is the art style I want to pursue, and this is the way I want to draw. And also, I want to know your thought on AI creating art today. Recently the Ghibli art was a big rage, and so I want to know your thought, and how did you find your art style?
Thank you. The AI question is, I think, a question that's worrying a lot of artists and creators. It's, now it's a sort of mark of poor quality. If you see a company that uses AI for its advertisements, you think like, they're like cheap steaks, right? They couldn't afford to pay a real artist. But I don't know how it will evolve. I'm also sort of scared, and because I can go back being a librarian, I guess, but but yeah, it is a bit scary. And yeah, but I don't know how I can prepare to prevent it. You know, I just can hope that society at large would still continue with human artists and writers and, you know, all kinds of other people. And about my personal style, it was just like, because I never learned how to draw, so it's sort of the only one that naturally developed. That's the only one I can do. So I have to also be very careful not to choose projects that I hate, because my style is instantly recognizable. So Lithuanian public will know that, oh, Miglė drew this. Why did she?
I actually have a follow-up question to that, because one of the things that you've talked about is just that you've talked about where your ideas come from, and you talk about just sitting still and thinking. But also, when I look at your work, there's so much about observation and also historic research that comes in. And how do you tell me a little bit about that, especially in this age of AI and inattention, because we are constantly, we are like we're like pigeons. The moment something, we're just like, what? Like, so how do you sit still and make your work?
Yeah, well, I guess it's just that, you know, I know that I have to do like a page by this date, and then or you know, something, and then also sometimes people say like, oh, but you know, you can, you know, think about ideas while you're making food or when you're going somewhere. Like, not really. I have to sit with the page and mark something, and I always think in a sort of a spatial way. So I need to have like place to draw like arrows to connect this or that, to doodle a little bit. So I just have to, it's just, you know, it's not that hard because I have to do it. But attention thing is, yeah, the observation is something that, you know, in this day and age, we sort of have to force ourselves to do it, like to go to an art museum. Now I started thinking of it, like for example, also healthy eating, as I'm trying to take care of future Miglė, but I know that she will resist this. I know that she will be super lazy and she won't eat vegetables unless I buy it and prepare it for them. And also, she won't go to the art museum unless I buy tickets for her. So I think of, you know, sort of pushing yourself out of your comfort zone of scrolling or whatever. And when you do it, it's like, oh, it's actually nice. I'm actually very inspired right now. But you have to sort of push yourself a little bit.
No, it really is. Like, just to be around in a space like this and to suddenly notice each tree and not just see, you know, a vague leaf cluster, but to actually sit down and see that the forest from the trees from the forest in that sense. I think that's very, very crucial in today's day and age. And I think that's how really human creativity will keep triumphing in that sense.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Next question.
Do we have another question?
Yes, we have lots of questions.
Related to illustration, what do you suggest a structured approach where you go through a course or a training? Structured approach is the right way, or the creative approach, the way you did, is right? What is the pros and cons of both? Structured is the course, like, you know, you do like, you learn like methodically, versus the way you did creatively on your own. What are the pros and cons of both?
Well, it's hard for me to say because I can't compare it exactly. I know some of my friends were illustrators and they learned classical like drawing. So they, for me, I think they can do so much. They have such much wider scope of what they can do. I can do one style, but they can do, you know, Renaissance painting, and they can do like a stick figure. And I can only do stick figure. So obviously art studies will give you more range. But then what they say, oh, I'm so jealous of your natural line. We lose the natural line when we learn art. And I'm like, okay, thanks. No, that's the only one I can do. But yes, so I really don't know. They think there's some benefits, some natural, and sometimes when I do workshops with kids, sometimes you can see like a child says, "Oh, I can't draw," and I say, "No, you can't. You have to draw. Do something," and then they go and they do the most expressive, most simple, like, and it's usually the ones that can't draw, and and I'm like, "Wow, that's amazing. You're a great artist, actually." And then their teacher comes and is like, But yeah, I think many people have this idea of what a beautiful art should look like, and if it's something else, then we're like not ready to recognize it sometimes. So yeah, I don't know if I answered the question.
Hi, I had two questions. First is, how do you keep your characters consistent? Because you're drawing comics, right? So how do you keep it consistent? Every character looking somewhat almost similar. And second one is, how do you deal with people critiquing your art? Yeah.
Thank you. Very good questions. With the character consistency, I usually just pick a few traits, because the more detailed you make a character, the harder it will be. So I just think like usually face form, hair, nose, eyes and lips harder, because eyes and lips I need for emotions. So, and then obviously clothing, you know, you have a lot of people in comics wearing the same clothes forever.
Suits.
Suits. So yeah, basically I pick out a few traits that I try to remember, not try to remember, I remember, it's not that hard. And I use them to continue with the same character. Yeah. And the critique, I don't know how I deal with that. I'm not like a, you know, massive celebrity, so that people, you know, you know.
Don't believe her.
Yeah, well, sometimes people like don't like my art and they comment something or whatever, and it's okay. It's not a big deal. It's usually not from someone that whose opinion I value a lot. I mean, it's usually from strangers on the internet, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
If it's someone whose opinion I value, then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm hurt, obviously, but I will try to take it into consideration.
Yeah, because sometimes, you know, I go to art classes and then I draw something that I think I'm pretty proud of, and then the teacher's like, no, you can correct this and this. So it feels a bit, you know, because you put all your time into that and then someone's critiquing it. So yeah.
Yeah, but maybe like the purpose or like of what you try to do is different from what teacher is trying to do. Like again, in the workshops, I don't really critique art in the sense that I ask a person like, what did you want to do here? And is it understandable? Like, does the picture convey what you wanted to do? And if it does, then fine. Like, it doesn't matter if it doesn't look perfect. So, yeah, I think it's, yeah.
Yeah, not a topic, like not a question, but like I drew.
We'll just move to the next one.
It's not a question. Okay. I drew you. I just wanted
Oh,
you to see it.
Would you hold it up for the room?
Yeah.
Oh my God, thank you. Wow.
Sure. Later?
Yeah, could you like pass it?
Oh my God. Wow.
Now you have to critique it.
That is so beautiful. Thank you.
Can you hold it for the course? Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright. Next question.
So you said that a lot of teenagers kind of pick up your comics and start reading them. I mean, recently, like since I'm a teenager and a lot of my friends, they mostly read comics like mangas. So how do you think teenagers being exposed, or like the influx of manga into like our readings, how does it affect the market, so to say, for your books? So does it inspire people to pick up your books, or do you think they avoid them?
Well, I actually don't know. I personally think that the more varied the market is, the better. You know, I like to read mangas too. Like it's, I mean, of course, probably, you know, if someone is buying manga, maybe they won't buy my comic. But if people are buying comics, I think it's fine. I think it's nice. And the more people read comics, even if it's not my comics, the more audience will grow, because maybe they will inspire other people to read, and then, you know, share ideas, share this. You know, I can't be the only comics person in the world. That's just not realistic. And yeah, I think it's nice that comics from other cultures reach our markets. I mean, hopefully the local artists would still have work, and you know, but I really don't know much about market, because, you know, it's not my area, but maybe you have some insight.
I mean, manga is huge in India. Every school, college I go to talk, everyone reads manga. And I think, like you said, there's a space for everything. But that also means that there needs to be better distribution of Indian bookmakers, Indian creators, and all of that. I think manga is a great example of fabulous distribution across the market. But also we know what monopoly does, as this entire week has shown us. And so we do need to make sure that school libraries, college libraries need to be stocked with all different kinds of titles. You need to be able to bring in more comic authors and illustrators to come talk to the teenagers in that sense. But I think the best thing would be to do is put a label saying for 18 plus, and you watch how it gets read. Can we also see if there's anyone at the back? Yes, please, sir.
Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
of
Sorry,
course, of course. No,
we got
of
up
course,
also. Yeah, I was just following up regarding your comment about observation. I don't know how many of you have read or know about the great R.K. Lakshman. Yeah, he used to go to his office and read all the newspapers, and then put up his illustration and come away. The question is whether the illustration was greater or was the caption greater. Yeah, and no book of India, of socialist India, would be complete without actually mentioning R.K. Lakshman. Is Mr. Citizen. It's a classic of illustration. So you started out by saying, you know, illustration. I think illustration itself is a great art form. Yeah, and many books would be nothing much without the illustration. Thank you.
I completely agree, and I think often people think of illustration as just something that shows what the text is saying, and they don't consider illustration's life as its own. Like, it has depth. You can sit and look at the illustration and find new and new things in there. And you can think like, oh, how does the artist show the characters? How do they show depth? How do they show the surroundings? And I think, yeah, good illustration, it adds something. And like we talked today, you can have the same text and give it to illustrate two different artists, and then one can make a love story and another can make a horror story from the same text. And sometimes people don't realize that, and I think it's very, very beautiful. Part of illustration.
All right, we have time for one more question.
Hi, thank you so much for the session. I was just wondering, considering that you're working with clients and with publishers, there can be a discrepancy in terms of what your vision of the final book should be. You mentioned that like publishers are looking at comics as appealing to a younger demographic and things like that, just corporate like nonsense. So I guess what I'm wondering is what it must mean to, this is a little cliche, but I still want to know what it means to be an artist and having to like turn your art into a product. and how you navigate that, like, and not just for what it means for that product specifically, but how it makes you think of yourself as an artist when you are having to make so many calls and make so many decisions, which a lot of them might not be your decision. So, yeah, what it means to navigate that in capitalism.
Thank you. That is a very tough question. I could, speak for hours and complain about some clients, but we have 2 minutes. So basically, I try to pick the projects that I'm interested in, first of all. Now I have a luxury to say no from time to time. And yeah, but sometimes it is a bit hard. I think the publishers that gave me the most freedom, I think got the best result, because those books won the awards, the books that I had more freedom. And when they wanted to do more control, it became sort of, compromise. It's a compromise between the author, the writer, the illustrator, the publisher, this and that, and it's a bit so it doesn't make such a big impact, I think. So for me, I don't think it's I don't suffer artistically, but sometimes I do a bit. It's oh man, I have to work on this project now. Okay, fine. And some project is oh, okay, nice. I'm gonna draw this today. Even if it's work, it's more fun work. But yeah, I don't take up projects that are I am ideologically against, or compromises my morals or something. So I try to keep within that. But I guess in the end of the day, it's work, and we all work, and we all know that work is not always amazing. It's normal.
Yes, I think that's such a good thing to remember. I keep telling myself that at work all the time, so thank you for that. And I think, Miglė, thank you so much. I think we're all going back with lots of arguments against the people who say, oh, but comics will spoil your reading habit, and say it exactly does the opposite. So thank you so much for this wonderful